Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make Beatport #1 style tech house in the style of John Summit. As usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything that's in front of me right now is available right in the top of the description on my Bandcamp for just $5. Thank you so much for the support to everybody who goes and grabs this, and yeah, let's dive in. So, we're at 126 BPM, and the first sound that we have up here is this tech house kick. So what this kick is it's a sample of mine that I've made through layering, and then you can see I've got a little bit of actually a multi-band distortion going on here. So if you look at this little audio effect track here, what it is you can see we actually have a dry chain. So you can see you're just hearing the dry kick, and then there's this mid and high distortion on top of it. Where yeah, you can see, so it's just EQ3 taking just the mids and highs, and then we have a saturator, which obviously you can hear adds a lot of punch to that. And then we have another EQ3 here just taking the mids and highs again to make sure that there's no lulling coming through. And yeah, so basically this is like just adding like a quickie layer on top of your kick, right? That's all this is doing. It's not like some crazy like, you know, compression or anything like that. It's just basically an extra layer of like a punchy kind of thing. But the nice thing is that it's being made using this kick. The problem is that, you know, if I was to take this kick and say, okay, this sounds good on its own, now let's get another kick and layer that on top for the high end. Well, since this kick already has its own mids and highs happening, you'd run into some issues with this kick and then the other sample. So this way, we're using this sample to just generate a new layer. And yeah, so without it, and then with it. And yeah, and then we just have an auto filter here which just comes on at the end. Just like a high pass filter. And that's it for the kick. And then we have the bass line. So it's a really simple bass line. Here's the actual MIDI you can see. So we're in the key of B, and it's just 3 notes, B, A, and C. And then what's happening is it's a bit of call and response, right? Because you get like it's like this note, this A is the call, and this C here is the response. So yeah, that's kind of the idea behind this bass line. Again, it's very simple, but it's actually complex because of that little thing happening there, where it's like, you get this is the call, and then this is the response. And then also just that like dun 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 dun, like the rhythm is even like call and response too, like this half and then this half. And that's really how you want to think about this, because it's like, you know, when you hear these tracks, you say to yourself, oh, it's literally 2 or 3 notes in the bass line. Why is it so catchy? Well, that's what it is. It's because it's just 2 or 3 notes, but then it's like very dynamic and very much like kind of working together. And yeah, so then for the sound, it's made with 2 layers. So we have our sub bass. This is the sub, which is just a square going into a low pass filter. So we just take this, like, it really just sounds like a sine wave, but it's like a very fat sine wave. You know, when you hear these tracks and then you try to go and make it on your own and you wonder why you can't quite get like the same fatness out of the sine wave, out of the sub bass, it's because of this. Try using like a square wave or something that's really harmonically rich and then subtracting some of those harmonics with a filter, versus just using like a sine wave for that. And then from the other layer, so this one is a bit quieter, but it's just adding some mid-range and some kind of like fullness there to the sound. So what's happening here is this is just 4 sine waves you can see actually. just doing FM off of each other, we've got like, yeah, this one's a bit more plucky. And then this fourth one's a bit more plucky as well. And then this is going into a low pass filter, which you can hear is just dialing it back a little bit. And then we're just cutting out the lows. And this is actually really subtle. You know, this isn't meant to be in there that much. Here's without it. And then with it. Right, so it's just this really subtle layer in there to kind of fill it out and make the bass a little bit more audible, because you can't really hear that low end. Like, you hear the low end, obviously, you know, when you're listening on headphones or in a club or on studio monitors. But even then, you're not really hearing it so much as you are, like, feeling the low end. You know, that sub bass is really more so that you feel it. This layer is there so that you hear it. And you can even make that a little bit more pronounced if you want to. But yeah. And then on the group here, you can see it's just two effects. It's just the compressor side chaining it to the kick, and then a high pass filter, which comes on at the end there at the same time as the high pass on the kick. So yeah, very simple there, you know, just kind of like not really trying to mess it up. Like, the bass already sounds really good just coming out of the two synths. We don't need to then go and have like a whole like processing chain on it, because chances are, if you're doing that extra processing, you know, it doesn't sound that solid coming out of the synths to begin with. And yeah, so then we have kind of like our main drums, which are the hi-hats and these claps. Right, if I play this with the kick, that's like the main groove. And you'll notice that these hi-hats and claps are a lot fatter and more full sounding than the other stuff. Like, you can see there's a bunch of other percussions down here, like hi-hats and percussions and stuff. And none of those quite hit as hard as these do. Right? So that's something that you want to think about, is like, when you're making these, you know, these are like these main, like the main hi-hat, the main clap. That's going to be right up front in the mix. You want to do some stuff to make those really big and full. And the way that you do that is basically going to be layering, you know, because these sounds, they need to be, like, the hi-hat needs to be, but it also needs to be, but then it also has to have like a punch to it, you know. So you want to layer sounds together to get this, right? If you get a and put those three together, you're going to have one very fat hi-hat. And that's what we're doing here. So yeah, we have our but then those two alone are still missing a bit of punch. So then we have our, and then same thing with the clap. We have like a, you know, like a, and a, and then you put them together and you get one really full, really fat sounding clap. And so that's how you want to think about that. You know, I think a lot of times, like, people think, okay, I'm just going to find the perfect open hi-hat sample. But the truth is, like, it's really just got to be layered together. And you have to get different sounds to make that one big, like, main hi-hat and clap bass. So yeah, and then underneath that we have all these little other percussions, which I'll just solo them for you so you can see. So it's 6 of these. And you can see these are all just playing kind of infrequently. You know, it's a little bit more like just bouncing around the main hi-hat. Lots of 16th notes in there. But essentially what you're going to want to do, the way you come up with these is you need a lot of them, right? Like, it's 6 of these. So you want to start with just like, see how there's this one, which is just that one hit every half note there? Or excuse me, every bar. Yeah. So you want to start with like something like that. And then you go and you put in like this one, which is hitting on that on that upbeat in the same place every bar. And then you add in this. And next thing you know, you have a few of them, but it's about like just making one little sound that's going to hit in one place inside of the groove. And then you just kind of like move through the bar. And then you get to the end of the bar or to the end of 2 bars. And there you go. You have a little sequence with these. Now they're kind of all talking to each other. And so, yeah, you can see that here. And there's some that are really spaced out, right? Like this clave and this little percussion in the middle, for example. You only hear those once every 4 bars. But that's just going to keep your groove feeling more exciting and more alive. So I recommend really playing around with that. Like, again, just start with one that's like one random hit in the middle of the bar. And then start adding another one that's another random hit. And it's really not going to be that hard. You just have to get down and do it. So yeah, and then underneath that, we have this live loop. Right, so this is a more organic kind of live loop that I've chopped up here. And the reason why we have this is basically this. Here's the whole mix without it. And then with it. So you can see why we have this. It's a subtle thing, and it's something that you can't always tell what's missing if you don't have it, but something is missing, right? Like, it's just adding that more lively kind of organic feel to the beat, because if you don't have this, it feels a little bit too much like bass house, It feels like very, just rigid. So we want to keep that groove going, and that's what this does. It just brings some life into the track. And the thing that's really important about this is a lot of people say, oh, well, don't do that because using loops is easy and it's cheating. Well, no, because the truth about that is, you have to have all this stuff set up before this is going to work, right? You have to be able to make a good kick and bass line, and then you have to be able to make the good main drums, and then you have to be able to get all these little background sounds. And it's I think people think, okay, you're just grabbing a loop and then another loop, put it together, and you have a song, but it's this doesn't work if you just have this and your bass line. Obviously that groove is working, but it's there's still so much more to this. So I really don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think that using a loop here is going to just give you that life that you can't get any other way. And yeah, so now that makes up the rest of the drum section. And now you can see there's kind of 2 parts to the track. So we have our main low end and drum groove. But then we also have all these little sounds down here, which are coming in on top of that and are adding kind of movement and flow to the track. Because if we play just this stuff, it feels like the outro. Right? And that's the thing, is that this is very repetitive music. Of course you're going to make the repetitive part to it, but now is the part where you have to go and make the not repetitive part, the stuff that's just going to be happening kind of randomly over top of it. It seems random, but it's obviously very much in the beat. And all this stuff is what's going to bring the track to life. And you hear it's pretty much always happening, right? So what's happening here is it starts with this vocal. So this is just a little vocal with a bit of echo and some drum busts to give it a more kind of warm feel. And then that's just playing in there. The key to this one is just when you have all these little synths and stuff, it's just making sure that this vocal isn't ever drowned out, right? It's very carefully placed in places where it's not going to clash with anything. And then also, it just adds a lot of nice atmosphere to the track, having it just ring out like that with the reverb and the echo there. Then we have this little bass synth. So for the notes on this one, it's actually, you can see it's really simple because it's just all B. That's the key that we're in, right? So it's just that one root note, but it's just like a nice groove with the different octaves of that. And that's what these kind of sounds are about. It's about just like, you know, making that little like that little groove right in there that's going to just be bouncing over top of everything really nicely. And so to make this sound, what it is it's an FM sound with operator. You can see we just have two sine waves, or actually a sine wave and a square wave, excuse me. And the square wave is at 4 on the coarse pitch. And then that's got a bit of an envelope on it, so that's what's making that more plucky. Then we have that going into a low pass filter, which also has an envelope on it, as well as a bit of a hard shaper. So that kind of gives it more punch and makes it hit a bit harder. We have this LFO on the pitch actually, so here's without that. And then with it, you can hear it adds that kind of like warped thing, I guess, to the pitch. And then we just have a bit of a pitch envelope as well. And then you can see I have this redux here. So this is just, adding a little bit of kind of crunch to the sound, a little bit of texture. I have some chorus, a bit of short reverb, high pass filter, and then it's just being sidechained to the kick. Then we have this one, which this is just using the same 3 notes as the bass line. And then this is made using wavetables, so it's 2 layers. So we have this like super unisoned out, just 2 saw waves, octave apart, tons of unison. And then we have 1 saw wave that's got no unison on it, so you kind of get the best of both here. And you get this really full and fat sound. And the key to this working is just making sure that the glide times are the same, right? You can see I have the glide on the second one set at the exact same time as the first one. And then I just have a little bit of a high pass filter, and then this is being sidechained to the kick. You really don't need too much processing on this because it's just a really fat sound. Then we have like this little effect sound. This is just one of mine, I believe, from Definitive Track Effects Volume 2. Alright, there we go. So that just plays in there. We also have this little synth which just plays B. This is just coming in a few different places to kind of add some nice. Yeah, you can hear it's just a nice sound. So this is just 2 square waves here inside of wavetable. You can see, they're the same octave. I've got a little bit of a low pass filter on them, which has an envelope and an LFL. So that's that movement that you're hearing. And then we have the noise unison turned all the way up. And so that is just like a very intense, noisy unison sort of thing. Kind of gives it its unique texture. We have a bit of chorus, a bit of reverb, a high pass filter, and then it's just being sidechained to the kick. And then the last 2 down here are pretty simple. So this first one is just made actually. So that was actually made on the Sub 37 over there. I believe that I was just playing with the detune and like the filter LFO a little bit. But so it's just like recording that sound in, and then I'm kind of going through a little bit of reverb. I've got an amp with, you can see that's being blended. So here's without it. And then with it. So it's very close to the same sound. It's just got a little bit more like crunch and fullness to it. And then I just have a high pass filter. And then the last element down here is this clap. And that's just in the background, adding a little bit. It adds a lot of energy there to the sound. And so that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, literally every single thing from this video is available right in the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much to everybody who goes to Bandcamp and grabs this. You know, it really helps support me. It's just $5, but you get a really awesome template that you can make a ton of tracks out of. Plus, it really helps support me so I can keep going and keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. Thank you so much, everybody, for the support, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.